I'm Christine Whitehouse, the better half of Whitehouse Foraging, obviously. I have been foraging for mushrooms for about 20 years now, and I introduced Graham to them about 7 years ago. It was my dad who first taught me about them, and I have enjoyed telling Graham all about them ever since.
Hello, I'm Graham Whitehouse. I'm half of Whitehouse Foraging. Today we're going to take you out on a virtual walk around some local woodlands to show you some of the edible mushrooms that are available to collect. We hope you enjoy it, and we hope that as a result you're able to go and start looking yourself. Okay, let's go.
There's some basic equipment you'll need if you want to go out yourself looking for mushrooms. The most basic thing you'll need is a basket or a special bag that's got mesh. The main purpose of the basket is the spores will fall out and continue to propagate the mushrooms so they can carry on growing. The same with the mesh bag as well. Also, it's handy to take out a mushroom identification book with you, and if you find a mushroom you're not sure about, you can have a look it up. And essential item is the mushroom knife. So this is proper mushroom knife. You have the cutting part and you also have the brush to clean as you collect. The biggest tip we could give you, which was a tip we were given when we first started mushroom foraging, is to clean as you go, so you don't end up with a big soggy dirty mess of mushrooms when you get home. So clean as you go and you're sorted.
So there are thousands of mushrooms in the UK, so it can be a little bit daunting when you start out trying to work out what you can pick and what you can't pick, because there are some deadly ones as well as some really tasty ones. So what we'd recommend is that you focus on one fairly easy to identify mushroom, really get to know that mushroom, and then move on and learn more. And ideally, once we're allowed, get out with a forager that can teach you where to look and what to look for. So we're now stood beside a birch tree, which is part of our assistance in identifying this mushroom here. It's got a very brown top and quite well hidden the stem, but you can just about see that it's a sort of a white creamy stem with some black markings on it. So we'll just take this one out near the ground and have a proper look at it. Oh, Christine's taking the mushroom. So we'll put that back in the hole where we found it.
Hide the evidence.
Bury the evidence. And then let's have a look at this mushroom. So you see you've got sort of a pale white tubes on this one. The stem is quite nice and thick actually. Some people say they don't like them, but this is the favourite bit of the brown birch bolete for us. You've got these little sort of black markings on it, which are all part of the telltale sign of a brown birch bolete. To finish off the identification, we look at the top of the cap, and there it is, brown If it had been orange, this would be an orange birch bolete, but because it's brown, it's a brown birch bolete, and it's in good order as well.
Nice and firm.
Quite happy with that. That's one for the bag. So we've already shown you a brown birch bolete, but now here is a little young orange birch bolete. If we put the brown one beside it, you can see the difference in the colours quite clear when you've got two side by side. We'll be taking these out a little bit further down than we would normally if we were collecting them. We want to show you enough of what's going on. So again, if we just look at the stem, just keep it still a minute. You see again you've got very similar stem to the brown birch bolete. This one's still to grow quite a bit, I think. But okay, so we've just spotted this little patch of chanterelle. There's quite a few here, all just tucked in under and round the hedge. And while we were spotting these, we suddenly noticed this. Again, a lovely little orange birch bolete. Absolutely gorgeous. I was just wandering along minding my own business when Christine called me back because she'd spotted these. Now these don't look very much to the untrained eye, and clearly today not to me either, but here we have some winter chanterelle. Lovely colour to them underneath the legs. The legs are hollow. But on the top they look incredibly like just any other little brown mushroom, but very tasty. You'll hear about lots of rules relating to mushrooms, from don't eat blue staining mushrooms to don't eat white gilled mushrooms, and I think one thing we found is that every rule has exceptions, and the only exception to that rule is that you must never eat a mushroom unless you're 100% sure that you've identified it as edible. Okay, so this is one of the Lactarius family. It's either Lactarius deliciosa, which is fantastic to eat. It's Lactarius deuterimus, which is not so good to eat, but still edible. So underneath, you see here, if I cut through there, you get a little orange milk starts to appear, and when you cut the base, you get this reddy orange around the outside here. They have a hollow stem, and normally if it was a deliciosa, I'd like to see little pock marks on here, and I'm not really seeing them on the stem here, so I think I might have a Lactarius deuterimus. If so, what will happen when this milk dries, this orange, it will dry red. So later on today we'll have another look at it and see whether it's dried red or whether it's dried green. So here's another one in the Amanita family. This is a grisette, and if you look very close to the bottom here, you can just see remnants of the eggshell that it was in originally. There's a little tiny baby here as well, and then there's a big brother here, and you can see the striations where the gills are showing through on the top of the thing. There's no skirt, and it's got white gills. 3, and there's more around as well. So here you see we've just moved the moss around so that you can see that eggshell that sits up round the base of the stem. Pretty clean stem, brown top, and even with this youngish one you can see the striations.
It's a porcini, penny bun. You can see the reticulation on the stem.
Still, that's lovely.
And you can see the white pores.
Yeah, and you can see it's in pretty good condition.
It's in very good condition.
The really good thing is,
there's another one.
Its friend is just down here. We've been looking for some of our favourite mushrooms called hedgehog mushrooms, and we finally found a little patch. We actually think that there's been some fairly thoughtless foragers through here in the recent days, because we've found nothing but overturned mushrooms all over the place, so been a bit disappointed. However, we have found a little spot of hedgehog mushrooms and we'll show you them now. So here, just down here, you can see we've got a few bits actually just hiding, but I'm going to try and get this one out and show you a little bit more about why they're called hedgehogs. So here we are, beautiful mushroom, but if you can see, don't know how well you can see it, but you'll see there's little spikes in here. Can you see them?
Just.
Okay, so these are why this is known as a hedgehog mushroom.
And here we've got some more hedgehogs here, which are slightly bigger. They're quite well camouflaged by the heather, so you have to really get your eye in and pull it back. But once you do, you'll see that you find even more than what you think is there. So here we've got a bigger hedgehog mushroom, and it's one of the easiest mushrooms to identify because of these spikes, which remind you of the hedgehog obviously. It's a great mushroom for a beginner.
Knowing the habitat that your mushrooms will grow in is really important, because it means that you can start looking in all the right places. Broadly speaking, mushrooms fall into three fairly broad categories. One is mycorrhizal, which means they work with the trees that they grow close to. The second is saprophytic, where they eat the dead leaves and dead branches and dead trees. And the third is parasitic, where they'll attach to a live tree and then eat it and kill it quite often. Mycorrhizal fungi will tend to attach themselves to the roots of their chosen tree, and then they'll spread out further fibrous tendrils to draw in extra nutrients for the tree, and they actually allow the tree to take those. In a symbiotic relationship, the tree will then share some of its own sugars back to the mushrooms, so each feeds each other. And here is a little ring, or partial ring, of shaggy parasols. This one's already been eaten by some of the local woodland dwellers. That one's a little bit younger still. And another one here. You'll see they've got sort of quite a bulbous base as well. So again, you need to be careful to make sure you're not picking amanitas by mistake. So again, that rusty colour as it bruises is one of the things we're looking for. Yeah, it's very clean, clear stem as well. Got a little family here. There's a couple of little babies, fairly young ones anyway, and then as you come around the tree, there's a couple of grand old ones. So, at the size of that, lovely. Underside, you see you've got a little clear veil ring, and then you've got your white underneath. So again, we have the young yellow legs. These are tiny, still got a way to go yet, but you see loads of them. And yet when I come up here, that's not even at full standing height, you can hardly see them. Here we've got two quite nice examples of Amanita with the remnants of the shell clearly visible on the caps, making a very sort of clear pattern. Tip it over, you can see really clearly, if I can get it in focus, the skirt still has the very clear markings of where it was previously attached to the gills. If you follow the stem down, it's got this sort of bulbous base, which is another sort of key identifier. It hasn't got any eggshell showing up the side of the stem. That also leads me towards it being a blusher. There's just a little shade of pink in amongst it, but not particularly clear on this one. But yeah, this is an Amanita, one known as the blusher. So here we've got some rather ugly looking mushrooms. These are called blackening russulas. You can sort of see why by just how black they start to turn. We know they're russulas because we can do the test for how fragile they are. So they're known as brittle gills, and I'm just going to get Christine here to test them. You'll see when she runs her finger through that it just flakes because it's so brittle. So that and these are all blackening russulas. Okay, here's something that makes a horrible smell out in the woods. This is a little stinkhorn. So basically they smell like rotting flesh. This top here smells like rotting flesh, and when they're young and fresh, this is all sort of sticky and gooey, and basically flies come and stand on it, have a good feed off it, and then take it with them and share the spores from there around elsewhere. And if I can carefully do it, there's to prove my point, there's a fly on another one just there. There we go, he'll be off later to spread those spores about a bit further. We've seen them sometimes with hundreds of flies around them and on them. It's pretty nasty. So we have here two little eggs that will eventually turn into stinkhorns. The jelly you can see is just protecting the little mushroom inside at the moment, but that will push through, and then we'll have that sort of phallic stinkhorn mushroom. Something to be really careful about when you're picking winter chanterelles. Here they are, nice yellow legs, brown top, and then just here right beside them is another brown top mushroom, which isn't quite so good for you. Not entirely dissimilar in look to the yellow legs, unless you look really closely. Clearly a big slug on this one, but the leg is not quite as yellow, and the gills are brown here rather than the gills on the yellow legs or winter chanterelle, which I'll show you in a moment. So here's the underside of the winter chanterelle. You see the stem's not so dissimilar, but the gills are a little different, and the stem on this one is pretty much hollow. It's a little bit difficult to tell, but it is fairly hollow. There you go, see the difference hopefully there. I have to show you this. This is slime mould, yellow slime mould. You can tell by its colour, but basically this grazes and moves. So if you see here, this side of it is a bit more crinkled and pulled apart, and this side's more like a front end of a wave. So I'm guessing it's moving in this general direction. So pretty weird stuff. Doesn't stand still, it keeps moving. Here's a little earth ball that somebody's already kicked over, but I'm going to cut this in half just to show you just how odd and wonderful it looks inside. These aren't edible, and to be fair, they look pretty rough inside. Oh, this one's a very young one. Normally they'd be completely black, but this one's very young. So you can see the insides that's going to turn to spores. Eventually, when it's mature enough, it would open up a little hole at the top, and every time anything touched it or it rained, it would puff out little puffs of spores and spread itself around. Well, that's the end of our virtual mushroom hunt today. We hope you've had a really enjoyable time and that you've learned some things as we've shown you what we've found. There's so much more that we could show you, and we'd love to see you on one of our walks one day. Enjoy your own hunting.